disappointing. That's what I have to say. Season 3 is the final season of Stargirl because it got canceled. Canned. Not surprised because it's a CW project, the longest running ones. I haven't seen Flash and Arrow and Supergirl. I've only watched their shorter ones so far, and I'm honestly not surprised. They use the same formula every single time. The final, they have this like big boss fight with all the main villains, and then the last 20 to 15 minutes is just, trying to give you a happy ending or some shit. Just no action, maybe setting up something for the next season. It's always just so stupid. It's also very cliche. In the last 2 episodes, they have terrible dialogue. There was this one, I think it was like Holy Popcorn Beth, or something like that. Because Beth helped out Starman. And that was his reaction when she got it right or whatever. There are some genuinely funny moments and some really great acted moments in this show. I'm not going to rob that from this show. The writing is just so terrible and at times cliche that it doesn't make up for it. Because in that same scene that I just talked about that had that corny dialogue, that just made me laugh out loud when I heard it. Because how stupid it was. That same exact scene had a very funny moment in it. Bev accidentally cheats on her test because of it, and she gets stressed out because she's a really good person. She doesn't like cheating. And Starman blowing up a barn when he finds out Icicle is still alive was amazing, but in the end doesn't matter. Spoilers, obviously. Starman isn't really Starman. He's this other dude, the Ultra Humanites brain was put into Starman's body after he was brought back to life. So that emotional moment was just, him getting into the act like he's fucking Clayface. And that's basically how they explain it anyway, about how good he was at being Starman. Oh, and they also pretend one of their own scenes didn't happen. Starman tells Rick that, hey, you didn't know that you could turn the hour off your... No, hour thing, because the whole thing for Hour Man is he only has strength for 1 hour. But he's like, hey, you can turn the limiter off. But he warns him not to do it. He does warn him. But later, when they're starting to get suspicious of Starman finally in the fucking final episode, they're like, oh my god, Rick told you to turn the limiter off, even though he knew what happened with it? No. Starman did not tell Rick to turn the limiter off. He told him he could, but warned him not to. Though he knows who Rick is, so they could easily fix that by being like, oh, he told Rick about the limiter, why would he do that? He would have known how Rick would have reacted. I honestly think this is probably one of the most anticlimactic, but not the most anticlimactic, just out of recent shows and movies I've seen, final fights. We have the entire Icicle family. Jordan and his son are kind of working together for a bit. Eventually he betrays them. The fight is just so convoluted and messy, I don't know what's going on half the time. Pat and Starman are fighting off and on. Icicle's mom and dad get in this little fight, and she threatens to kill him unless he kills the girl. This is a married couple that's been married for years and years and years. It's fucking crazy. Eventually, Wildcat jumps in and causes a distraction. She shoots an icicle up in the air. Car falls down. She just fucking dies. And then somehow Icicle Jr. knows about it later. He doesn't find her body. There's no reaction like him screaming because his grandma died or anything like that. There's just a scene where he says, "Yep, my grandma did. And so's my dad." Like, how do you know? You weren't even in that area. You were over there fighting with your dad. You were nowhere near there. How do you know? When did you find out? When? But yeah, he knows his grandma's dead. It's just such a convoluted, messy finale. And they also almost give Starman probably one of the most depressing endings ever. As you know, if you watch the show, all his friends died. He was like one of the last ones standing, and then he died talking to Pat. Those were his final words, was talking to Pat all the way back in season 1. When he's brought back to life, obviously, he's kind of confused at first. He's still the same Sylvester and talks shit to them. And then he finds out their plan that, Ultra Humanite's gonna put his brain in his body. And his last words are, "What'd you do to Pat? Where's Stripesy?" So his last words were about his only remaining friend that was alive. Like, he's worried about his friend. All of his other friends are dead, and he's worried about Pat. And then he's murdered. His brain is put on a shelf. And for the longest time, it looks like that's where they're gonna leave him. He's just gonna have a super depressing ending. But in the very last few minutes of the show, there's a throwaway line where they say, "Oh yeah, they brought back Starman," because the show ends with a Gotham finale where they do the whole 10 years later thing. And yeah, they're just like, yeah, they brought Starman back. He's okay. He doesn't have a depressing ending anymore. It's something. I definitely like this season more than season 2, though. It's still not very good.